about this film. Where did this idea come from?
Yeah, I wish I could take full credit for it because it's so mantastic. No, the idea actually came from Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and my producing partner Ben Silverman, who Ben and I years ago did the TV show 30 Days together. And then he went on to become the president of Universal and then create a new company called Electus. And he started working with Ben and with Will and Jason. They started talking about some like funny movies that they could do, and they got on the topic of male grooming and of like manscaping and what men will go through. And they said, "Oh my God, who could we get to make this movie?" And Ben's like, "I know just the guy to make this film." And so when he called me up and said, "Would you want to work with these guys?" I said, "Absolutely."
How did he say it? Was he like, "Do you want to do a film on cutting hair?"
Well, he said, he goes. So we've been talking about an idea with Will and Jason about the world of manscaping, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in directing it. And it's one of those calls that you get, and you're like, "Is this a prank call? Really? Are you serious?"
Am I being punked right now?
Yeah, am I being punked? That's what it was. As we talked, like guys, and as we talked about the movie, it's like I think I laughed nonstop for 2 hours straight about who would we talk to, who would we follow, what topics would we cover, and by the end I was like, done. I'm going to make this movie.
That's amazing. So then for you, what besides it being really fun and funny, what was the drive behind it? Like, what did you want to find out about?
Well, I mean, for me, I think we're at a very interesting time right now where men don't have to go like chop down trees or go kill things and bring home pelts. You should bring home as many pelts as you can.
Right.
I often do in New York City, little rat pelts, pigeon pelts. But those things, like that idea of manhood is gone. The idea of working in factories and a lot of people who are having to do like manual labor. That's also something that's kind of really shifted in our society. So now, what defines manhood? And while this is happening, there's also been this real commodification of manliness. This idea of selling manhood as a product, as some sort of a bottle, a lotion, a cream, whatever it may be. So I just thought this would be a real fascinating way to get into kind of this, I don't know, sociological study of being a man.
Yeah. Well, I find it really fascinating because my entire audience and the audience of Ask Men are all men, obviously, like millions and millions of men. So in your mind, what is the definition of today's man and masculinity?
God, that's a great question. I think, ultimately I think being a man is ultimately being someone who stands up for what's right, who stands up for what they believe in, who accepts his responsibility and deals with those. I think that is kind of the basic term of what I think it means to ultimately be a man. Being a man is finally being responsible for your actions. For when you were a kid and like shit just hit the fan, you're like, I'm only 20, I don't know. I think it took me becoming a father, I think, to really understand what it means to be an adult and be a man. Like that took me from a very when I was in my 30s, like I was a man, but I was still a very kind of, I think, borderline irresponsible man, as most guys are. I had a plant that lived. I had a cat that lived. Finally,
congratulations!
I
don't know how to do that.
It was amazing. So then suddenly, when I had this spawn that I had to take care of, and there's a different level of, I think, understanding what your role in this world and in society is. Kind of once you have that, it becomes a very different. It becomes a very different purpose for you.
Well, there's this one quote that I wrote down that you had said, which I found really interesting. So you said, "We've started to do to men what happened to women for years."
Yeah.
Which is to say, you're fat, you're ugly, you need to fix this. So people who used to be really confident about just being men are now suddenly insecure.
There are these there's this huge world now of body dysmorphia that's happening within men, where men look at themselves as being inadequate. They're insecure because if you just walk down like a magazine stand now and you look at like the Cosmos of the world, where it's like women, you be the better you're not good enough, lose some weight, and then you go down to the men's magazines and the men's magazines say the same thing. The men's magazines are lose weight in 50 pounds, be better for your woman, what's wrong with you, surgery works, there's all these things that are pushing you towards and telling you now you're not good. And here's how you should be better. Here's what you should be doing. Because we've created this image in the media of what the perfect man is. And now the perfect man isn't somebody who's covered in hair. It isn't somebody who, has beards and mustaches. Most of the people who are perfect in society's eyes are incredibly toned, are in great fit shape, are usually somewhat tan, but not too tan where they're orange. You have a full head of hair. Someone who's balding, also somewhat inadequate. And so we've kind of created this pressure on men to look a certain way that I think at the end of the day isn't even realistic. Just like for years, it hasn't been realistic for women.
No, absolutely. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago that I was speaking at, and there was a plastic surgeon that was there who said now men are 45% of his business, whereas 5 years ago they were 15 to 20% of his business, because they want to look younger, they want to compete in the workforce, they want to be more attractive.
And these are men who are going in for a variety of treatments now. They're going in getting a lot of the same types of facial treatments that women are getting done. They're getting the Botox. They're getting rid of their crow's feet. They're men who are, I mean, just look at some of the biggest actors in the world. Like Burt Reynolds was a great man at one point.
And he's still so sexy.
He was a great, but now he's like a sexy kind of stretched man.
Right.
He's a very fast-looking man. It's like Joan Rivers morphed with like the old Burt Reynolds to create new fast Burt Reynolds. You know, it's because we've started to buy into this idea of you have to once you get old, you're replaceable. Yeah. You're not important. Your value is gone. And so I think to be able to embrace who you are, like, you know, every wrinkle that I see pops into my face, I was like, I earned that one. That one's all mine. Every hair that falls out of my head, I was like, that's mine too. I forced that thing out. Quitter. Those damn quitters.
Do you have moments where?
Listen, would I love to have a big, fantastic, full head of hair? Of course I would. Be amazing, you know. But at the end of the day, I don't, and I'm not gonna, you know, pine over that. I'm gonna be happy with who I am in my body and in my life and in my person, and hopefully my actions and my you know, personality would be able to carry me through. Listen, I grew up being a funny-looking kid. It's like I already had to get over not being good-looking. So I think that for me, it would be different if I was like this. If I was like some sort of like a supermodel who suddenly started getting old, be a very different thing. But I'm not. You know, so.
Well, you're very attractive, and actually that leads to my next question, because
yes, I do.
I was going to say that attraction isn't about being good looking. Attraction, I believe, as a woman, it comes down to the character that I can feel in a person. So when I interacted with you in the first few moments, you were very kind, very confident. You can tell you have a lot of passion, obviously, with the films that you've created.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about the movie. Like, some of the people we interview in the film are people that, you know, if these people weren't in the media, you would think, oh, that's a very schlubby, unattractive man. Judd Apatow, Zach Galifianakis, Adam Carolla. You know,
those are my crushes.
But these are people who have, you know, I think kind of found their way in the world through humor, through kind of this dealing with their life through a sense of humor and through their own personal passions. And I think that's what ultimately makes them attractive. It isn't just about, you know, being a 10. You know, that personality for me, I think, is much more of a 10 than your looks. You know, I would much rather be with somebody who makes me laugh than be with somebody who's like the hottest thing on the planet, who is like a mop of a personality.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah. So is that what the grooming is doing for people? It's letting them express themselves in a confident way? I
think it's letting some guys find confidence, but at the same time, I think it's also, there's a guy in the film, Ricky, who I am fascinated by, and he's such a great character. You know, it takes Ricky 2 hours to get ready before he leaves the house.
Really?
2 hours. You know,
insane.
It's more than like it takes, you know, women a lot of times. You know, it's like you know, girls. It's like, I think on average is like an hour. It takes Ricky 2 hours, twice that.
What does he do?
Well, he does everything. He like shaves twice. He shaves at 2 different levels, so he has 2 different shades of growth on his face. He puts in like 3 different things in his hair. His hair probably takes the longest, but what's interesting about Ricky is he, you know, by coming from, you know, a Sikh culture, an Indian background, you know, as a kid he was very much kind of made fun of by his peer group, by his friends, and so for him it became this quest of social acceptance. And so he's still trying to find that social acceptance, even now as an adult. He's still chasing this perfection that he couldn't, you know, find as a child. And I think that there is this really interesting story that's being told through him and other people in the movie, which is about acceptance. You know, and I think that the conversation that part of what's had in the film is accepting yourself for who you are, knowing what's imperfect about you, accepting those imperfections and knowing you can't fix everything. Or, you know, you'll end up like, you know, the Bride of Wildenstein as a man, which nobody wants to look like that.
Exactly. So what's one final tip that you can give to men that can help them become grounded and find something within themselves that makes them satisfied and happy to be them?
I think the easiest thing a guy can do, I tell guys this all the time, they're like, what should I do? I was like, go to the gym. You know what? Just exercise. If you start just exercising, it's amazing how much better you'll feel about yourself.
That's true.
You know, like just when I go for a run, I go to the gym, whatever. It's like I don't need to spend a ton of time in the mirror, but just that bit of physical exercise makes me feel better about me. It makes me feel more confident in who I am. I feel more fit, even though it may not completely be true. But but it is a journey. But I'm getting there. You're getting there. And I think that if you just take that time to not abuse your body as much.
Right.
You know, go home a little earlier, have 1 less beer, you know, give yourself 10 more minutes in the gym. Like just that exercise makes me feel 10,000 times more like a human being.